There is a lie so effective, so perfectly disguised, that most of the people hearing it right now will never know they believed it. Not a lie about money, not a lie about politics, not even a lie about religion. Exactly, a lie about themselves. A veteran exorcist, a man who has spent over 2 decades sitting across from the possessed, the tormented, the spiritually shattered, says he has heard the same lie repeated, almost word for word, in nearly every single case. Different people, different countries, different decades, the same lie. And here's the part that should terrify you. He says most people who are living under this lie right now have no idea it's even there. They think they're free. They are not. Stay with me. Because by the end of this video, you're going to ask yourself one question you won't be able to unask. Do I believe it too? To understand this lie, you first have to understand where it was discovered. Not in a philosophy classroom, not in a seminary lecture hall, but in the room where deliverance ministers do the work almost nobody wants to talk about, exorcism. Not the Hollywood version. No spinning heads, no green vomit for the cameras. The real version is slower, quieter, and in many ways far more disturbing, slow pan across old ritual texts, a stole, a worn Roman ritual book. Priests who do this work for years start to notice patterns. Demonic influence, they say, doesn't usually announce itself with violence. It creeps in through permission. Through consent given so quietly, the person giving it never even notices they said yes. And according to the veteran deliverance minister at the center of this story, a man who has led hundreds of these sessions, there is one specific lie that keeps showing up, over and over. Like a fingerprint at every single crime scene, he doesn't call it a temptation. He calls it the master lie. Because once someone accepts it, every other sin, every other spiritual collapse becomes almost easy, automatic, like a locked door that's suddenly been left open. So what is it? We're about to tell you. But first, you need to understand why it works so well, because the lie itself is almost embarrassingly simple. It's the packaging that makes it lethal. Here's something most people get backwards. They assume the most dangerous lies are the biggest ones. Wild conspiracy theories, obvious cons, elaborate manipulations. They're wrong. The most dangerous lies are almost invisible because they don't ask you to believe something false. They ask you to believe something that sounds true, something reasonable, something comforting, something that feels less like deception and more like common sense. According to this exorcist's decades of first-hand testimony, the master lie has 3 properties that make it almost impossible to detect from the inside. It doesn't tell you that you're wicked or broken. It tells you that you're fine, better than fine. It tells you exactly what your ego wants to hear. It disguises submission as liberation. It convinces you that surrendering to it is actually you finally breaking free from guilt, from restriction, from other people's rules. And this is the most devastating part. A person who believes they need saving will look for a savior. A person who believes they're already fine will never look at all. Do you see it yet? Because according to the priest whose work inspired this story, once you understand this pattern, you start seeing it everywhere. In relationships, in addiction, in the quiet private thoughts people have at 2 a.m. and never tell anyone. But he says the clearest, purest version of this lie, the one that opened the door for humanity's very first catastrophic spiritual collapse, happened in a garden. Most people know the story. A garden, a tree, a conversation that changes everything. But most people miss the mechanism. They remember the fruit. They forget the sentence that came right before it. 4 words, according to the ancient account. You will not die. Not there is no punishment. Not there is no God. Just a quiet, reasonable sounding denial of consequence. That's it. That's the entire weapon. According to the Exorcist's teaching, this is the prototype, the original template, for every deception that follows it throughout human history. Not Evil is good. Something far more insidious. There is no cost. You can do this and nothing bad will happen. You can take this and you won't actually lose anything. You can believe this and there will be no consequence. Sound familiar? It should. Because he claims this exact structure, this exact shape of lie, is still running today, just wearing modern clothes. Here's what should genuinely unsettle you. This priest doesn't claim the master lie is some ancient artifact locked away in old texts. He claims it is more active now than at almost any point he's witnessed in his ministry. Not because people are more sinful than before, because the lie has gotten a better disguise. In his account, the lie no longer needs a serpent or a garden, doesn't need to whisper anything supernatural at all. It just needs a culture that keeps repeating in 1,000 different voices the same underlying promise. Nothing you do here really matters. There is no lasting cost. You get to define what's true for you, and reality will simply comply. And here is the detail that stops people cold when they hear it directly from him. He says the people most thoroughly captured by this lie are almost never the ones who look evil. They're the comfortable ones, the successful ones, the ones who feel deep down like they've got it figured out, and never once ask themselves why that feeling arrived so easily. Because according to him, the absence of struggle is not always peace. Sometimes it's just silence. A particular silence of a door that was never locked to begin with, in a house nobody bothered to guard. Every exorcist has a case that reshapes how they see everything after it. This story, recounted in general terms, without identifying details, to protect the privacy of those involved, is the one that's said to have crystallized this priest's understanding of the master lie. The person came to him, by all outward appearances, completely ordinary, kind, intelligent. Not the stereotype anyone imagines when they hear the word possession. No dramatic collapse, no violent onset. Just a slow, years-long unraveling that this person had explained away piece by piece at every single stage. It's just stress. It's just a bad season. It's just how modern life feels. Each explanation was reasonable. Each one, on its own, made sense. And that, the priest says, was exactly the point. The lie doesn't need you to believe one big, impossible thing. It only needs you to accept 100 small, plausible ones. Each one just enough to keep you from looking directly at what's actually happening underneath. By the time this person finally sought help, the priest says the spiritual damage had been years in the making. Not because of one dramatic decision, but because of thousands of tiny surrenders to a single underlying belief. Nothing here has real consequences. He says the recovery process was long, difficult, not instant, not cinematic. But it began the moment this person could finally name the lie out loud. Because a lie you can name is a lie that's already starting to lose its grip. So how do you actually recognize this thing in your own life? Before it becomes a crisis, before it becomes years of unraveling. Drawing from patterns described across decades of pastoral and deliverance ministry, here are 4 of the most common disguises the master lie tends to wear, the minimizer. This disguise doesn't deny that something is wrong. It just insists it's smaller than it is. A little compromise here, a little rationalization there, each one individually defensible. The crowd. This disguise borrows its authority from sheer numbers, as if the size of the crowd walking in a direction has any bearing on whether that direction leads somewhere good. The entitlement. This one is subtle because it often follows real pain. It takes a legitimate wound and uses it to justify something that will ultimately deepen the wound rather than heal it. The false exit. This is perhaps the cruelest disguise, because it doesn't even ask you to commit. It just asks you to believe you're always one decision away from walking back out, which conveniently means you never actually have to walk out today. 4 different masks, one face underneath all of them. There is no real cost to this. Here's why this story isn't really about ancient history or theology or even about exorcism at all. It's about you right now watching this somewhere in your life, quietly, reasonably, without any dramatic announcement. There is very likely a version of this lie already operating. Not a demon in the cinematic sense, just a belief. A small, comfortable, unexamined belief that says, this doesn't really matter. This won't really cost me anything. I'll deal with it later. And according to everything this priest has learned from decades in that room, hearing that quiet lie whispered by hundreds of different people in hundreds of different ways, the goal was never to make you afraid. It was to make you awake. Because a lie you can name out loud is a lie that has already started losing its power over you. So ask yourself honestly, right now, before this video ends, where in my life have I quietly decided that something doesn't really matter? That answer, however uncomfortable, might be the most important thing you hear all week. If this story affected you, don't scroll past it. Sit with it for a minute. Talk about it with someone. The lie survives in silence. It loses ground the moment it's spoken about honestly. And if you want to go deeper into the real teachings this story draws from, drop a comment below. We'll be covering more of this in the next video.